is now being recorded, as you hear.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. This is Brandon Taylor. I'm an instructional designer at the Center for Teaching Excellence and Innovation. And I'm being very innovative today because I'm doing PD by plane. I'm actually, my flight got changed to go move out my daughter's dorm room in Florida. And so I had to do this PD by plane. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Our esteemed guests and co-facilitators are Dr. Janet Abrams and Dr. Amy Hager, who are pioneers. We call ourselves the Three Musketeers. We piloted HyFlex even before COVID-19 last term with it, and I won't get into the details. I'll let that for Janet and Amy. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat. If you want to unmute your microphone, we want this to be very open and informative and informal. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. This session is being recorded. If there's some editorial remarks you have to make, we can pause it, but just so you know, it is being recorded. So today we're going to talk about the HyFlex course design model, give you an introduction to help you be armed and dangerous. So the objectives for this session are that after this session, you'll be able to say what HyFlex is. You'll have an understanding of how it works. You'll have some idea of who's doing it besides here at Rush. But you also get an understanding of why HyFlex is significant. We'll also keep this very balanced and let you know about some of the downsides and hear some of your thoughts about the downsides of HyFlex. And we'll have a little discussion about where HyFlex is going, not only at Rush, but across the industry of higher education or the arena of higher education. And then probably the biggest thing is the implications for HyFlex for teaching and learning. So now I'll pass it over to Dr. Janet Abrams.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be with you this afternoon. And thank you, Brandon, for putting this together. I'm pleased to be joining you and my colleague, Dr. Amy Hager, to talk about HyFlex with all of you. As Brandon said, Amy and I piloted HyFlex last fall, and I'll fill you in a little bit more about that. And I'm going to say this at the beginning of my presentation and at the end of my presentation. I love HyFlex. And Brandon did not ask me to say that, and nobody in City asked me to say that either. I'm telling you from a faculty perspective how much I enjoyed doing it. And of course, we're going to talk about the downsides. And I enjoyed it enough that it was approved to be piloted in my course last fall. And I asked for it to be used, even before the COVID-19, I asked for it to be approved for this fall, and it was. And so now, as a result of the pandemic, it's an option that I think is one that would be very wonderful for everybody to at least consider. So how this came about is that, for those of you that don't know me, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Community Systems and Mental Health in the College of Nursing. And I am the course director for a course, and Amy pulled up the syllabus from the course from last fall. This is 569, it's maternal child management for the FNP. It's what we call the management course for the family nurse practitioner students, where it's essentially like the culmination course, where this is where they get to put everything together in terms of how to manage a patient in the clinical setting. And so this really all came about
What I was thinking is,
I had met with Brandon on previous occasions about another course that I'm involved in, and he at some meeting mentioned this program called HyFlex. And I just put it in my brain, and I have to tell you, I'm so honored that he's letting me even tell you what HyFlex is today, because probably a year ago, I might not have been able to tell you what it is, but he has so much confidence in me that I have learned so well what it is that he's letting me explain it to all of you as fellow educators. So I remembered at this meeting, that unrelated to this course that's up on the screen right now, this tool or program, I didn't even know what to call it at the time, called HyFlex. And I set up a meeting with him so that he could tell me more about HyFlex. And so what I'm going to share with you is my understanding of HyFlex, and I have shared this with other groups when he has been present, and he is actually joining our meeting from an airplane, and so we don't know if he's going to get cut off or not, but he has told me before that I tell the correct interpretation of HyFlex. So anyway, what is HyFlex? It's basically a I don't even want to use a word like platform or tool. It's an aid for you as a faculty member to help collaborate with your students on your course material. And how this came about for me personally is there were two reasons. I am not going to retire. I like to make that clear to everybody. But I am, I could retire if I wanted, but I have no inkling to retire. And I wanted to know if I did retire or if I wanted to kind of pull back on my course load, would there be a way for me to do it instead of physically showing up on campus every day? So that was one question I had in my mind. And also, for a variety of reasons, I was going to be doing a lot of traveling last fall, and because I'm the course director of the course, I was like, how am I going to be teaching this course? Because I do about 75% of the traditional lectures in this course, and I have a few guest speakers coming in to this course. So how was I going to do this course if I was going to be traveling? And so that's when I called upon Brandon for him to help me understand HyFlex. And so here is what HyFlex is, and here is what HyFlex does. So you can plan a course, and this course that's this Nursing 569, it's traditionally offered as a live on-campus course in the fall term, and it's also offered in the same course is replicated or duplicated in spring term, all online. So we're specifically talking about fall term prior to this pandemic. So what this course does, it gives you, the faculty, the maximum amount of flexibility that you would want and desire, and it offers that same opportunity to students, that it gives them the most amount of flexibility that they could want and desire. So what do I mean by that? In the HyFlex model, and it really is a model, you can just, even though the course was categorized, and I don't remember the city code for it, but it's categorized as a live on-campus course where traditionally the students would show up every Tuesday morning and they would participate in a class on campus. What HyFlex did for us last fall was that as the faculty, I could present and facilitate my class live on campus in the classroom with the students sitting in the classroom. I could facilitate my class from my office, which is on the 10th floor in the academic facility, with the students sitting in the classroom. I could facilitate my class, my live class, and all of these are live classes that I'm referring to. I could facilitate my live class from my home if for some reason I couldn't get to campus with all the students sitting in the classroom. I could, if I had to, travel to California or Mexico or wherever I had to travel to. I could facilitate my class from wherever I was with the students sitting in the classroom. We could do a live class. On the same token, the students have the same amount of flexibility. The students could participate in the class live, synchronously from campus. They could participate live, synchronously from home. They could participate live, synchronously from anywhere in the world that they could connect to the internet. So essentially, you could have class no matter where you are or no matter where the students were. So here's a diagram of that. And what we did in the pilot was the first 2 to 3 weeks, I actually physically showed up on campus in the classroom and facilitated the class with me being on campus and the students being on campus. We informed the students about this pilot the first day of class. They did not know about this pilot ahead of time because we didn't plan it in the way that we could get it in their registration for fall term information. But they were informed about the pilot the first day of class. So the first 2, maybe 3 weeks, I physically was on campus, the students were in class. The 1 week I did class from my office. I just wanted to test every possibility, every option that was offered to us by using this HyFlex. 1 or 2 weeks I did it from home just to see how did that work out. On the other hand, from the student's perspective, and I'll tell you how everything worked out in a minute. On the first day of class, when class was over and all the students were in the class, I said to the students, you now know that we have this pilot. I said, I'm asking for a volunteer not to come to campus next week. I'm actually asking for one of you to volunteer to sit at home and do this class live while you are at home. And interestingly enough, not everybody volunteered. We had it was a small class, but 2 people volunteered to not physically come to campus. And one of the people had an issue with their work schedule. The other person did not. So we said to the person who did not have an issue with their work schedule, we selected that student to physically stay at home, but participate live in class week 2, right out of the gate, right after week 1 was over. So from that student's point of view, and Amy and Brandon, you can correct me, I don't think that student physically showed up in class again. She continued to participate live from home. She lived in Naperville, so this avoided her having to drive in rush hour traffic, which existed at that time last fall. This avoided her having to drive to campus every week in rush hour traffic. We had another student who was insistent that she had to physically be there in class every week because that was her way that she felt that she would have the best learning. She learned best by physically sitting in class with the instructor live at the time that the class was going on. So about halfway through the term, this particular student got sick. She got an upper respiratory infection, and she did the class live from her home. She never physically showed up in class again either. And that was the student who said she physically had to be sitting there in class. But she felt she was getting the same opportunity because she was live no matter where she was sitting. So it offered both myself as the faculty and the students the maximum amount of flexibility and to participate live in class. We did record these classes so that if a student missed a class, they could listen to it at whatever time was convenient for them. So they had the opportunity to attend the class asynchronously, not live, but recorded. The downfalls or the challenges, I wouldn't even call them downfalls because they were challenges that just took time, and that was, and Amy will talk about this more. We had different amounts of students, as I see the blue faces moving back and forth.
Sorry.
We had different amounts of students there physically in class, at home every week. There were some weeks where none of the students showed up in class. So at times, Amy and Brandon and I were the only ones in the classroom, yet the other students were live, but they were not physically sitting in the classroom. I was okay with that. Some of the guest lecturers that we had come in were a little uncomfortable with that. And we weren't sure how they were going to like it if I asked them back this year. And I still don't know how they will reply, you know, when I invite them to come back to class this year. So some of them really wanted the students physically sitting in the classroom. But that was a minority of the guest speakers. There aren't that many guest speakers to begin with, because as I said, I do most of the lecturing. But that was a minority of the faculty that came to class. The majority, once they got into the rhythm of not physically having students in class, but they were overhead on the speakers, like the students, if they had a question, they could participate live in class, and then they got into a conversation with whoever the speaker was as if they were physically sitting in class. It was really, you really couldn't discriminate except for the lack of the physical presence of the student. There was no decrease in the quality of their conversation. So what I wanted to say with the challenges was the technology. You know, some weeks we had problems with connecting to the speakers, or not the overhead speakers, I mean, or it was just the technology in the room. Now I have to say, when I did the lecture from my office, I did not have any of the technology issues that I actually had in the physical classroom. And we were assigned a classroom, I think we were in 1094. It was a classroom on the 10th floor. Oh, okay, yeah, Ramona, yeah, thank you. So it was the technology issues, and we had to, and Brandon's from City, we had to call the IT people in many of the weeks to help us with the technology. But when I was doing it from home, the lecturing, or when I was doing it from my office, I didn't have the same issues. And when I'm facilitating class from off campus, I'm working off my laptop. I'm working off a ThinkPad. I don't use a Mac. So other people who use Macs, and Amy I know uses a Mac. And so it may, I think it was the same for them, but I'll let her speak to that. So that was, I don't know if Brandon is still with us, but we can take a few minutes now to see if you have any questions about exactly what is HyFlex.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, so Brandon, did I explain it okay this time?
Magnificent. It gets better and better each time.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, so then I'm done talking for now, and we can move on to the next agenda item on the outline.
Yeah, so they have who's doing HyFlex. So as we mentioned, this Nursing 569 was the first HyFlex course that we are aware of that rush, so we don't want to step on anyone's toe, but as far as we know, this was the example of the eye care values of innovation, if you will. But just down the street in Lewis University, the graduate nursing program at Lewis University, their master's in advanced nursing program, the whole program is HyFlex. There's nursing programs in Texas, University of Texas, and other programs across the country, small colleges, large colleges, globally. Everyone is considering HyFlex, and if you've been paying attention to the higher ed literature, everyone is considering HyFlex. It's the hot buzz. I hope you don't hear the jets too bad on this. I apologize. And so really, we want to let you know that you have colleagues, not only at Rush, but elsewhere, who are using HyFlex and considering it, and it's definitely having happened. And I just want to say one last thing, is we've been doing HyFlex since the 80s. Many programs used to teach on interactive TV, as I'm probably showing my age here, where you would be in a video conferencing room and have an on-campus class.
Okay, I think we're losing Brandon.
Yeah.
So Amy, let's go on to the next slide.
Okay. All right. So why is it significant? So, I think.
As well as remote.
Brandon there?
Yeah, I can't text him because I don't, well, I'll try. Maybe. Brandon, you're kind of cutting in and out. So Amy, let's go on.
All right, so we'll move on. So I think, why is HyFlex significant? When Janice, Brandon, and I started this last fall, I think a lot of traditional education, everyone's very used to teaching in the classroom. They come to class, the students come to class, and it's a model that everyone's very comfortable with and, obviously works pretty well. And so when you looked at a model like this, it's like, well, why are we going to do this? What are the outcomes going to be? Are students still going to learn as well? And Brandon does speak to this. I think he didn't get to it yet because he blipped out that the literature does support using this type of model. And I think now with COVID, there really isn't much convincing we have to do. I think that this model has become something, for better, for worse, that we're as educators going to have to learn how to use. And I think my experience with Brandon and Janice was a good one in that what we found was even students who thought that they could only learn by coming to class, once they got comfortable with the technology, once they were at home, once they tried it for whatever reason, like Janice said, one girl got sick, so she thought, well, let me try this, see how it works. People end up liking it. And I think same with the people who are lecturing. It's a little bit of a learning curve. You're very used to coming to class and standing kind of behind the podium, and you can interact with students that way. And I think when students are online, you have to, and I'm learning to do this is still not comfortable for me, pay attention to the chat box and make sure that you're not forgetting your audience. So there's some things that you have to learn and adjust to, which is why I think sometimes people don't want to embrace that change. But I think with COVID, we all now recognize that we need to. And then one thing I did want to comment on is that Janice and I used a platform called Blackboard Collaborate. And the reason that Janice actually chose that was it was something that she was used to using, and it was technology she was pretty comfortable with. Janice, correct me if I'm wrong. But what I think we've also learned is that we can, next time we do this, improve on what we did. So Blackboard Collaborate, we could not see the students. We could hear a ding when they raised their hand, or we could hear them in the speakers. If they just spoke up, we could hear them, but we couldn't see them. And I think next steps is using a platform more like Zoom, which I think we're all becoming familiar with, where you really can interact with students. And so I'm hopeful that, you know, some of the faculty that came and lectured that really did miss that sort of student lecturer interaction, that even in a synchronous, but yet not live together in the classroom format, we can still get some of that back once we kind of move on to kind of improving how we did it the first time. Janice, do you have anything to add to that?
Not right now, thank you.
Okay, so I guess we can speak.
Yeah, let's just keep going, yeah.
So I'll start a little bit and then you can jump in. What I find interesting is that what I really didn't like initially about the HyFlex was that I was very uncomfortable with the technology. You know, if we had something that wasn't working, I wasn't comfortable that I knew how to troubleshoot in the moment. And if you're lecturing and then you also have to troubleshoot technology, that can be very stressful. So we did have the support of City, specifically Brandon, who was there to kind of make us feel more comfortable and give us that support. However, I do think what's interesting is that a lot of the problems we had ended up being when we were trying to do this in the classroom. So when I'm at home on my Mac and I'm doing a Zoom session like we're doing now, I have had very few problems with technology. So I'm hopeful that that downside is going to improve. I think the other downside that we notice is that some lecturers would maybe bring props to class, like maybe they have an inhaler with a spacer and they want, you know, our students to kind of, you know, pass it around and touch it and kind of see it, or, you know, sort of physical things that you can't do online. And so some of that was just re-looking at maybe how we could still present that same type of material. I would say that was one of the downsides. But interestingly, the students often didn't think the downsides were as bad as I thought they were. They were more used to this and they appreciated the flexibility, so.
Right, and Amy, I'm going to interrupt. There was a question on the chat. Is that how, and I think Kathy, what you're asking when you say, how is it different than Zoom? Are you asking how is HyFlex different than Zoom? So I'm going to speak to that question as if that's what you're asking. If it's not, you can correct me. Oh, okay, thank you. So last fall, Zoom did not exist on our campus. Zoom was only a twinkle in my eye at the time, and it did not exist. So in terms of your question, two things, and the City people can jump in too, but in a way, it's not different in the sense that you can be live, you can do, again, I'm using traditional words, lecture, you can do a lecture, you can record the lecture, you can do it synchronously and asynchronously, but again, there was no Zoom at the time, and we aren't sure, or we weren't sure that it was compatible with Blackboard, or that we could integrate it into Blackboard. But as we sit here today, we know that we can integrate it into Blackboard. So Zoom is, I guess if you want to say, now that we know that, you know, we're all using Zoom, Zoom exists, we can integrate it into Blackboard. It's probably pretty, you know, again, the name of it, HyFlex, giving the most flexibility. Can you get the more flexibility with HyFlex as you can with Zoom? Probably not, but it's just a different branding name. So I don't, and again, Angela, I know you're on the line, Angela from City. Is there anything that you can add that it's different from Zoom? HyFlex is different from Zoom, or? Angela, are you there? Amy, do you have anything?
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is that Zoom is a platform, and the HyFlex, so you can use Zoom within the HyFlex model. So all that HyFlex really means is you have 3 ways you can attend class. You can come to class and you can sit in the classroom. You can listen to recordings on your own time, asynchronously, or you can log on to an online platform such as Zoom, such as Blackboard Collaborate, whatever you decide to use, and you can, quote, attend class synchronously via the internet. Does that answer your question? And again, I'm still learning how to see if Janice, can you see the chat box better than me since I've got my screen on?
I can see the chat box, and Kathy is saying that what we've discussed is answering her question, and somebody else just posted that they like to use the analogy of a football game. Right, you can attend the game in the stadium, you can watch, the game, and I'm reading this for Amy. You can watch the game live on TV, or you can record the game. Well, I never thought of it that way, but why not? Maybe football will come back one day. I hesitate to say this, but I will. If this pandemic hadn't happened, you know, I wonder how, I mean, I know for sure I would be using the HyFlex model again this fall, but I wonder how many others would be interested in using it or not. And it's not a question you can answer. It's certainly something to think about. And I guess Amy and I just happened to pilot it at the right time. And so we just have, and again, there was no Zoom at the time, so we just have the advantage of having to do this one time. I'm making myself notes about things I wanted to say to you guys, but I want to get through the slides first. So
I don't have any more downsides to add. Did you?
Okay.
Janice?
No. Okay, and I'm watching okay, so.
Can you guys hear me? This is Angela.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I'm not.
Wait, I'm just, okay, are you going to speak to the difference or the similarities between HyFlex and Zoom? There's some other questions, but I'll let you speak to that first. Okay.
So the biggest difference is that for HyFlex, that is something that the faculty member is going to need to just say ahead of time, hey, I'm going to do a HyFlex class. And for just Zoom, that'll be like a different type of class. It'll be an online synchronous class. We had several faculty members reach out recently. I don't know if Amy was one of them. Maybe Amy was one of them, asking for an appropriate code for. Yeah. Oh, it was you. Okay, so my team got together and we came up with 2 new codes that we're going to try to get pushed through the university curriculum committee. And so that I think will help differentiate, where OS will be online synchronous, which means the faculty member is delivering the course through Zoom, and that's just how they're delivering the course. So they're delivering it synchronously. Everybody is online, and HyFlex is not going to be like that. It will have a face-to-face component to it. Whether or not people attend is a completely different story. So,
I mean, whether or not they attend synchronously or asynchronously. Yeah.
Right. And so, whether they come to campus. So like, as you said, you guys as the faculty were in there sometimes without students. You still had a face-to-face option. The online synchronous will not, or Zoom will not have a face-to-face option. So Amy gave a really awesome definition of that.
Okay. All right. And Jan Odiaga says, can students interact in a group? We did not have them separated into groups, but I don't, well, yeah, you would probably do like the Zoom group. I don't see why not. Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have the need to do groups in the fall, so we did not have to use that feature, but yeah, there is no reason that they can't.
Yeah, we're doing that in 571 BC this summer. This is not quite the HyFlex model because you cannot actually come to class, right? Right. But we're doing I think what Angela just referred to as online synchronous. So it's all through Zoom, it's all online, and it's all synchronous. We're all there together, and we use the breakout rooms. So when we want students to go into separate rooms to work through cases together, we put them in breakout rooms, and then we can end that session, and then they all come back to the main room.
All right, and Amy, you're gonna love this question. Jan Odiaga asks, did you take attendance?
You know what I just learned? You can.
Well, tell them what we did. Like, because we were doing this as a pilot,
I took attendance.
We specifically took attendance. That we didn't tell the students we were taking attendance. We took attendance just so we would know how many people were live in class on campus, how many people were live from home, and then we just presumed if you were not live in class or live from home, you were listening to the recording. So that was the other group. And there was not a trend. We can't say that everybody or nobody showed up after week 5. There were, and Amy, correct me, I think there were 2 weeks, 3 at the most, where there was physically nobody in the classroom except for the faculty on campus.
Yeah.
On those weeks, though, there were students live from home. So there were students attending the class live from home, even though there were no students physically sitting in the classroom. And I would say for what the weeks that there were no students sitting in the classroom, 80% were live from home. So it was the minority that were listening to the recordings. So the students choose to take 569 in fall because it was intended to be show up in class every Tuesday morning on campus. So these students, the 80% of the students, when there was nobody physically sitting on the campus, the majority were physically attending live from home or wherever they were. We didn't ask them where they were. It didn't matter to us where they were. They just weren't physically on campus. So that's the answer to, did we take attendance?
Yeah, and one thing I just learned is that if you have a large classroom and attendance is important to you, you can also use Zoom to help you take attendance. Brandon kind of taught me that. So there's instructions on how to do that if that's something that is important.
Okay, so and Pega just wrote in, if you're using Zoom and you're recording the session, you can view attendance reports. So I think Amy just described that. So thank you for that input, Pega. Appreciate it. All right, let's move on with the slides because I think there are a few more.
I think this was Brandon was going to talk about where is it going. I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Janice.
No, he did a very nice slide in how he incorporated into our iCare and how it fits into iCare in terms of the innovation, collaboration, accountability, respect, and excellence. Whereas these slides were actually prepared prior to the pandemic, but I think they're as applicable, if not more applicable now. So we're thankful that he prepared that slide. Mm-hmm. So what are HyFlex's implications for teaching and learning? Well, I think he was going to speak to this too, but as long as we know, it depends whether we're going to be on campus in the fall or not. But I think there's a huge place for HyFlex and the philosophy of HyFlex and the model incorporating either Zoom or Collaborate, whatever you're used to or comfortable with. And like Angela said, when registration time comes for the fall term, and this was before pandemic, I was, how you have to fill out, the information on your class, before they submit it for registration. I was going to make sure that there was a comment on the registration for fall term for NSG 569 that it was going to be offered in the HyFlex format. And so maybe there's going to, like Angela said, there's going to be other codes. But one of the things that I want to speak to before our time runs out are the student evaluations. Because we didn't know how the student evaluations were going to go, knowing that we were piloting this program. And I can certainly say something about it, and Amy can say something about it, because we were teaching, we were in this course together. We did this course together. And that we were very nervous, of course, about what kinds of evaluations are the students going to give for this course. But I'm just going to generalize. I think the students were really positive about it. They did talk about some of the technology issues, but not to the degree that they said, oh my God, I hate this, you know, don't ever do this again. We didn't get any comments that were negative to the degree that don't do this again. And I did repeat this, you know, this course I said is duplicated in spring, and there were comments on that course evaluation about those students that were in the strictly online version. They did know that we were piloting HyFlex in the fall, so that the recordings, when we were recording the class, there was also recorded when we were having trouble with the technology. So the students that were listening to the recordings when we were having trouble and we were having to troubleshoot and try and figure out what to do, they made comments in the evaluations for spring term, is that they got frustrated listening to us trying to problem solve the technology. Well, I have no way of replying back to them. Well, we were frustrated too, but there was no comment about don't ever do this HyFlex model again. You know, this is horrible. So anything you wanted to add about the student evaluations, Amy?
No, I think you said it well. And I think what I found interesting is that even when they mentioned things that they thought didn't go well, they would add, but I really enjoyed and appreciated the flexibility. So I would still like to see this type of option offered. And I think it's interesting because we piloted this on a group of students who specifically signed up for an in-person class. So these were people that said, no, I know you have an online option in the spring. I don't want to take online. I want to sit in class. And so to have that group of students say, you know, this actually worked out really well for me, I liked this, was a little surprising to me. So, and that was good.
Yeah, we were pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. So whether we're allowed to come back to campus this fall or not, we don't know. I don't think any of us knows what the status of coming back to campus this fall or not is. But this course will definitely be offered again. Unfortunately, Amy is not assigned to this course in the fall. I am. But this course is definitely going to be offered in the HyFlex model again this fall. I'm still undecided about using Collaborate or Zoom, and I might just use a combination of both. You know, we'll see how things go, but at least I know that I have those options available to me as the course director of the course. So I think I was at our last slide, Amy, because I'd like to open it up for questions, comments. Oh, yes. Okay. I'd like to open it up for questions or comments if anybody has any at this time. Oh, there's Amy.
I just thought if I stopped sharing my screen, maybe
and we could see you.
We can see more of the participants.
Okay. Well, I've got the chat open, and I don't see anybody posting anything, or somebody can unmute their mics if they want to ask a question. Otherwise, like, you all got it. You all. And sorry we lost Brandon, but.
Yeah, it does show you need to be somewhere where you have a good Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah. And my concern is teaching this to the pre-licensure. And Ramona, can you be a little bit more specific about what the concern is? Like, this does not replace the NTL, the training lab. You know, you can't, you can certainly demonstrate how to hang an IV, but you can't physically have the students hang an IV or put together an IV. So it doesn't replace that. It can be an adjunct to it, but teaching skills and assessments. You're right. You're right.
Ramona, our class, which maybe we didn't make clear, it was primarily lecture.
Didactic.
Didactic. Students are getting new content. We did have discussion boards, but those were asynchronous and those were online. So yeah, if you're, teaching how to put in an IV and kind of hands-on skills, I think Janice would agree with me, coming to actual lab is best for that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the course lead for the physical assessment course, NSG 625, for the nurse practitioner students. And so we have that same challenge.
Yeah.
And so we physically don't have the students, hands-on, but we're doing a lot of demonstration. But it's not HyFlex this summer, but we're probably going to do HyFlex for 625 in the fall. So there's a lot of demonstration, the faculty demonstrating to the students, and then the students doing return demonstrations on a volunteer patient in front of the faculty from wherever they are. Now there's different skills that the nurse practitioner students use in the pre-licensure. And so yes, this is not a substitute for teaching skills and assessments, I agree. And I am going to say I started this session with I love HyFlex. I'm going to end the session with I love HyFlex. And it's almost 1:50. So if there's no other questions, I think we can call this to a conclusion. You can certainly, anybody who's attending today, both Amy and I are on the Rush email. So if you have any questions, you can certainly feel free to shoot us an email. We'll be happy to chat with you. All right, then we're going to stop the recording and say thank you for